Welcome back to our channel. Today we're doing our second episode of the Best Yes book talk series. We had a couple weeks off because of Thanksgiving and just people have been busy lately, so it's been a little while, but we had 2 more meetings that we'll be talking about today. The first one is gonna start with chapter 7.
7, 8, and 9.
Yeah,
for the first one.
Yeah, so we kind of have to dig really far back into our brains to think of chapters 7, 8, and 9 because how long ago was that? Probably like a month ago?
Yeah, over a month ago at this point. The first chapter is called Analysis Paralysis, and I feel like that's all of us. Basically, I feel like what stood out to me was like, as Christians, I feel like, and especially as girls, we're always afraid of like making a wrong turn and not doing God's will and like literally ruining the rest of our lives. I don't know if that's anybody else, but that's definitely me. Basically, I feel like this chapter is just like releasing the pressure of decision making from us to God. It gave us a list of things that you can do to make sure that you're like, and as long as you're, I mean, not necessarily that that's foolproof, but basically as long as you can answer those things for yourself, then you can be confident in like the decisions that you're making and you can trust God's process. They were by, and I feel like the steps were trusting in God, analyzing the decision, making the decision, and then just going with it and then trusting God that He'll work from it. So like as long as you're doing those things, that it's not necessarily that you're making a decision that's outside of God's will, but that whatever decision that you do make, He'll use it for His good.
Mm-hmm. And I also underlined because this kind of goes back to like our last book and talking about like fear of rejection is, in here it says, fear of failure is the real cause of our analysis paralysis. Basically, over-analyzing everything because you're afraid of failure or you're afraid of rejection, and that kind of goes back to like the entire last series. Kind of going along with what Lysa said, I underlined, but if you desire to please God with the decision you make and afterwards it provides to be a mistake, it is an error, not an end. So it's like God can still work in your errors, like even if you happen to make the wrong choice or like not necessarily what He would have chosen for you, like He can still work through that. It's not the end, it's just an error.
Yeah, like you're never too far gone.
Yeah, and then I also liked, I had a bunch of stuff underlined in this section, but I wrote in the little margin that there's not always one right choice to make, because it says sometimes God gives us 2 or more choices that would all please Him and be in His will, and we just get to choose. I feel like sometimes we're given choices and it's like there's only one right answer, like there's one right choice, He just wants one, but it's like sometimes He just gives you options. Yeah. And you have to make that choice.
Which is so weird.
Yeah, I like that. I feel like a lot of times I never think of it that way.
And I like the part where it's talking about like if you never use your faith, it's like, then what good is it? And you're not gonna grow it. So like if you don't make a decision and then just trust with that, then how are you going to, like, then do you have any faith at all? Like what does that look like? If that's not faith, then where is it? If you hear noises, that's my dishwasher.
It finally stopped running, right?
Yeah, it's probably on the drying cycle now. It's like draining. Love that. But then on page 87 it says, as long as you desire to please God with your decisions, no decision you make will be completely awful. There's no perfect decision, only perfect surrendered decisions to press through our fears and know that God is working in us to bring about good through us. God's promises are not dependent on my ability to always choose well, but rather on His ability to use well. She always has such good like one-liners.
Chapter 8 is consider the trade.
Basically, it's like you can't just keep adding and adding and adding and adding without taking something out.
I really related to her analogy in this one. This one was about her closet, right? Getting rid of that orange turtleneck or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you can't keep adding to your closet. Like you need to start getting rid of some things to add some things, or else you just can't fit anything in there. She was like, I need to get rid of that orange turtleneck.
If you saw Corinne's closet, you'd know why.
Yeah, gotta do a clean out.
I didn't really have much in 8. Basically, it's just like when you add too much to your life, then you're gonna lose things by default. And sometimes that's harder than just like being like, you know what? I've gotta say no to this now so that I can say yes to this. Because then if you're like juggling too many things at once, then one of them is just gonna end up not getting like shafted. So it's basically just being aware of like how much you're taking on.
There's also this quote on 98, and it's about like not making a choice to release something, but not making a decision is actually a decision. It's the decision to stay the same, and staying the same when I know I need to change the choice that carries consequences with it, not the least of which is a gnawing regret that will grow bigger and bigger with each passing day. And then there's also do you remember the analogy about the tree in winter?
Yeah,
Like,
I heard about that.
I forget where she was, but she went to this place and there was like a big snowstorm or something, but it was in kind of like the middle of fall, so the leaves were still on the trees. And when the snow came, the weight was too much, so all of the trees were like breaking, and there was just like broken trees everywhere. Because usually like in winter the leaves fall off, so there's room for like the snow to like sit and not break all the trees. But it says, she must listen or she will break. Her tree needs to be stripped and prepared for winter, but she can't embrace winter until she lets go of fall. Like a tree, a woman can't carry the weight of 2 seasons simultaneously. In the violent struggle of trying, she'll miss every bit of joy each season promises to bring. And not even like seasons as in like fall, winter, spring seasons like in our life. Like we can't hold on to things in our past while trying to embrace what's in the future, because then we'll miss it while we're still like looking back and trying to like grip onto what has happened. We need to let it pass. Me too.
Yeah, honestly.
Hopefully some of you can take that to heart a little bit.
Alice.
That's a good, she has the best analogy.
She really does.
Like seriously, like you can think something's confusing and then she like puts it into an analogy and you're like, that makes so much sense.
Chapter 9?
Yeah. Show up to practice.
Basically this whole book is her giving us steps to like take good steps forward.
Yeah.
So it's like teaching us how to make a decision, teaching us how to let things go, now teaching us how to practice saying no or saying yes.
Make choices.
Oh, this one was all about basically having the wisdom to practice making good decisions. So this one had a whole big long list of like, if you don't know a lot, pretty much all of the Proverbs are about wisdom. And it almost like personifies wisdom to be like this woman, and it shows how she is wise. And so she read Proverbs, or she had written Proverbs 1 to 11, and gave this big long list of like tangible ways that we can practice being wise so that we can trust our decisions. And so some of those ways to be wise were accepting God's word, storing up his commands within us, listening to wisdom from those who are wise before us, asking for insight, so like asking for help from peers, asking for understanding or crying to the Lord for understanding, and then looking for wisdom as passionately as we would hunt for a hidden treasure. So basically like not just being passive, but being wise is kind of like an active role where you have to like try. Because I feel like a lot of us can think back on times where we just weren't necessarily paying attention, and then you're like, whoa, how did I get here? And you're like, oh, because I wasn't actively trying to avoid it. You know what I mean? So, and then it was James 1:5 says, if we lack wisdom, ask for it. Sometimes, again, I feel like it's so simple, you just don't think of it. So it's like, I guess I can ask God to like show me an answer or give me wisdom.
I just like this like big paragraph, kind of, I'll just read it just because I feel like it kind of sums it up. It says, it is difficult to embrace an intimate relationship with someone we never see. God understood this, so he physically came to earth and took on another name, Jesus. The absolute best yes we'll ever give is asking Jesus Christ to be the Lord God over our lives. When we receive him, we receive life everlasting. But this is just the starting place. We must walk with him daily, using his gift of wisdom with each and every decision.
So that was session 1. We met about that in November. Well, for this round. And then this is the one that we met for like
literally on Thursday.
This past Thursday.
Hopefully this will be a little bit more fresh in the minds.
Yeah, I really like this one.
Chapter 10 is managing demands means understanding expectations.
So basically it's like what are others thinking and what are we thinking that we're expecting to get from the positions we find ourselves in. And sometimes it was like, because sometimes you can think you're saying yes to something because it's a good choice, and then sometimes you realize you're saying yes to something because you're expecting something that's not going to happen. So again, she gives us tips to making good decisions based on your own expectations, and she gives you questions to ask yourself. It feels thrilling to say yes to it now, but how will this feel in 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months? Do any of your expectations that come from this yes feel forced or frantic? Like if you say yes, do you feel like it's because someone else wants you to, or does it make you feel like overwhelmed? 3, could any part of this yes be tied to people pleasing? 4, which wise, older, grounded in God's word, and more experienced, more mature people in my life think this is a good idea? And are there any facts that I tried to avoid or hide when discussing this with wise advisors? Which I think that last one is like...
I feel like when you're telling people things about like I feel like this can easily really be related to like relationships, and you're like hiding portions of like, you know,
you're
things,
making excuses
like,
for it.
Yeah, you know things about them, and you're actively hiding it from people because you know that like they'll give you like the reaction and the reality that you don't want to like just like see for yourself. Like you know it, but you're just like don't want. I feel like everyone has kind of.
So I think whenever you actually ask yourself down deep, and you can do that with God too, like which parts of this am I like keeping from people? Not necessarily that it's a secret or that it's something bad, but it's just something that you know is like those red flags of whatever decision you're making. You're like, well, but I'm doing this in my Sabbath time, but it's fine. Or I'm doing this without other people around, but it's fine. Or I'm doing this, but it probably isn't gonna last, but it's fine. Like whenever you have those things that you're like making excuses for and you don't really want to bring out into the light.
And I feel like that's almost why it's good to like talk to people, because I feel like when you're in your own head and
at you about talking to people.
Oh, I was like, what are you like? I feel like it's good. That's like why it's good to talk to like wise, or not even like wiser, but just like people in general about different situations in your life. Community. Like, because when you're saying things out loud, it kind of like helps you understand it yourself. Like when you actually like say it out loud, it's like, oh, because like I feel like when you're just like saying it in your head, I feel like it's like you're mulling things over. But when you actually like speak it out loud, whether it's good or bad, and like in your head, it doesn't take on as much weight as when you're like saying it. I feel like then it hits like the realization of it. So y'all gotta have good community in your life.
If you don't have community, pray for it. I feel like I've been seeing that with myself lately more. It's like the thing, like that's something that I've been praying for faithfully lately. Not that I don't have some of that already, but I was just like, like I'm craving more of that in different aspects of my life, and I feel like that's coming through. And I think that also, like, I feel like this just made me think of this. This wasn't part of our discussion, but I love journaling. But like I think that there's like benefits in actually like praying out loud, speaking, and I don't do that very often. Like I pray all the time,
but like
I don't actually like talk like I'm talking right now as often. It's like very rare that I do that.
After the devotion or the podcast that I listen to, they give like a prayer time afterwards. Like they give you like they pray and they give you time to like pray, and like I feel like that's the time when I'm like speaking out loud, and I sometimes, because it gives you like a time limit, and I always have to like pause because I'm like, I'm not done praying yet. And like I feel like that's a time when I feel like I'm able to pray out loud.
Why do I feel like that's taboo?
But like why do I feel like I'm the opposite though?
You always pray out loud?
I literally always do.
I pray out loud.
Yeah, like I feel like I don't really find myself just like in a situation and just like start praying in my head, because to me that almost just feels like I'm just thinking to myself. Whereas like me talking out loud, like the other night I was like literally praying out loud like before I went to bed for Cookie. And like I pray out loud, like I speak, like,
Yeah.
and I don't really, I do it in my room or like at night in my
Here's a
bed. Like
question.
I don't do it in front of people.
And
I
maybe
just
you
like
can answer this for yourself.
I would agree.
I saw a TikTok about this week. Do you guys like talk to yourself in your heads?
Yes.
Yes.
Like you
All the
speak to yourself, or are you just
Yeah.
thinking about things? Because I don't know that I speak to myself in my
Like,
head.
what's an example?
Like
of that?
you're going about this and you're like, okay, I need to, like you're thinking about things like, okay, I need to get the dishes out, and you're like saying that in your head, or are you just thinking about it? Like,
I feel like
do
I
you have
said
your
it.
voice in your head?
I think
Or
so.
do you just think it? Because I don't feel like I have a
Like, sometimes
I feel like
like,
saying a
I-
voice is
like,
creepy, but you
yeah.
know, like an inner monologue
Like
is what I'm
sometimes
saying.
I like literally can hear myself being like Camille. Like I say my name in my head.
See, I don't
I'm
see, like,
or like
And when you were just talking about that, like this morning I woke up and like in my head I was like, I need to make my bed, then I'm gonna go brush my teeth, then I'm gonna do this. Like I like say things in my head like
See, I don't have
speaking.
that, which is maybe
Not-
why prayer is like so different for me, because I don't speak to myself that way. So whenever I'm thinking about something, I'm just like thinking. I'm like, okay. And it's not a like a conversation I'm having with myself. It's just like a thought.
Yeah,
It's,
I mean,
and so
that's how
I feel
it is
like when I
sometimes.
pray, like it's an actual conversation. Like I'm forming sentences in my brain. And so like I literally have times when, and I feel like that's what I mostly do, is like when I'm journaling or when I'm walking or when I'm in school and something's frustrating or when something really good happens or when I get bad news, like then I turn it on. I'm like, all right, here we go, voice mode in my head. But I'm not always in voice mode in my head. This is so
That
weird.
is
I don't know.
interesting.
Just ask yourself about that, because maybe that's why you pray more out
I
loud.
was gonna say, yeah,
Like
like
you're
I
always like talking to
Yeah,
yourself.
it just-
Again, not in a creepy way, but
yeah. Cause like I should probably work more on just like being able to do it in my head and like be able to like
Constant
be
prayer.
with people and yeah, and like just do it in my head. Whereas like that's not really a thought to me, is like, oh, pray about this in your head in this exact like moment.
right now.
To me, it's like before I go to bed, I like actually speak it out loud.
Time for it.
I feel like I do a little bit of both. Like I feel like when I'm journaling and then like when things happen, I do it in my head, but I also do it out loud. Like I feel like in the car, I turn up the music on my way to school and I speak out loud. And I like sometimes during the day, like when people aren't home, like I'm not just gonna like like when Corinne's in the other room, I'm not gonna be like say something. But like
look at me whispering.
but like I don't know. Like I feel like I do a little bit of both.
That's a good point. But for some reason, to me, and I might be to other people, maybe like non-believers or like people who like aren't super far in their faith or don't know a ton about it, I feel like praying out loud is like
Yeah.
weird for yourself.
like
I feel like
praying-
that's reserved for church or like for groups. But then praying out loud, like I feel like sometimes people might see it as that. But I think that's part of the enemy being like trying to stop that from happening, because I think there's power when you speak it out.
I feel like praying in general is something that people don't understand a lot.
Yeah,
Like I feel
agreed.
like a lot of times people think of it as not like they literally just like how we were talking in church about how our relationship with God is so simple. Like it's not even like that your prayer has to be like so well formed with your words and like so formal and anything. It's literally just like a conversation and just like talking to him. Like I feel like a lot of times people make it up to be something so much more, or I mean like it is like
More complicated.
more complicated than
Than
it
it
is,
is,
but
yeah.
it's really just talking to, or like even praying in like public, like just like having their eyes closed.
Because I feel like we live in a place where I feel like most people would consider themselves Christian.
Yeah.
Maybe not most, but like that's at least the impression that I get.
Yeah.
But like, why is it so shocking when we see or I see another family that's praying at dinner out in public? Like every house I've ever had dinner at pretty much prays before their meal. Like I've been with so many families that pray before their meal, but you never see that happening in public restaurants.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like that's more of like a ritual. I don't necessarily know how much, like I think it's good to have those things that you do always. I don't think praying before a meal is necessary, like a necessity, but I think it's interesting the difference between private and public.
Yeah.
But I also feel like we were one of those families for the
We
longest
were.
time. We always
Just in
like
the last 5 years.
I was gonna say, I feel like it was when Jason came around, because then Jason, like, we would go out to dinner and he would be like, we need to pray before, and I'd be like, oh, like, we don't really do that when we go out to restaurants, we do that at home. And so then, like, he started that with the two of us, and then I feel like I literally, like, mentioned it to Dad or mentioned it in general, like,
and we were like, yeah.
we should do it in restaurants. And then ever since then, we go to Montezuma's every Friday, or like anywhere we go, that's just like what we do. And we've made that a habit the last 4 or 5 years. But like, I feel like that was like kind of the switch, and we never really thought about that before.
Because we always did it at the house, but it
Yeah.
was like I don't know if
Anyways,
it was
we're
too loud.
kind of going off on some tangents
Yeah,
here.
tangents about prayer.
I mean, they're still
what
good.
are you guys'
Yeah.
thoughts about prayer? Kind of, it's a cool. I don't know. I like.
But I also like love seeing other people do it. Like when I see like
Makes me
couples
so
or like
happy.
other families like praying
Yes, it, like,
in a
warms my
restaurant.
Go.
Yeah, like I feel really good about that. So I wouldn't like
Yeah.
assume people are. I would like if you don't do it, but you're thinking you want to. I wouldn't assume people are judging you for it.
No.
Like I feel like for the most
And
part, people
cares
look.
if
Yeah,
you are.
people look at you and are like, wow.
But
Like
that's the thing. That's the enemy working. Like
yeah.
worrying that somebody is judging you for talking to your creator.
Like, you do you.
But also, I read this thing this week. This doesn't really have anything to do with Christianity. It was like when you're, I forget how it goes, but it's like when you're in your teens, you're worried about what other people think of you. When you're in your 20s, you think about what your friends think of you. When you're in your 30s, you think about what your families think of you. And then when you're in your like 60s, you realize nobody was ever thinking about you in the first place. And then it's like all in your head. Not that people don't care about you, but like
People really are.
not or like
Yeah,
or like
so-
and maybe it wasn't thinking about you, but like looking at you. Nobody really cares about you that much, which I know it sounds harsh,
Nobody
but
cares
like
about you.
But
nobody
that's
cares
true.
about you as much as you think they care about
And
you.
people are always thinking about themselves. So like
Exactly.
everyone's thinking about what people thinking of me while they're not looking at other people. And
Right.
if that's what everyone is doing, then everyone's constantly thinking about themselves.
And even if somebody
Yeah.
is judging you for praying, they're thinking about themselves not praying.
Yes.
Not about you.
they're feeling
praying.
conviction.
Yeah.
Seeing
So
you
I just think
pray.
that's interesting because I feel like we always do. Like at least myself, I'm like you think people are watching you, but they're not watching you. Like nobody's even paying attention to you.
yeah.
And if you like reminded yourself of that every day, all the time, I think we would have a lot more humble people that just do themselves. You know,
Yeah.
people aren't
definitely.
looking. People aren't looking at you as much as you think they are.
All right, chapter 11 and 12 quick.
The power of the small no. Early on, expectations and disappointments can be managed better with a small no, but the more we let things develop and progress, the harder the no becomes.
Yeah. Basically, it's like don't let something that you could have just nipped in the bud grow into something that's harder to deny or say no to.
I was gonna say the exact same thing in my margin. I wrote, say no before it gets too hard to decline. Yes. Because usually you know you're gonna say no, but you're like, oh, I'll get back to you later.
But you're
And
gonna
then
like
no.
hurt more people's feelings if you like get their hopes up than if you're just like, sorry, I don't think that's something I can do right now.
Yeah.
Like, don't let it grow into something that you can't
Yeah,
give time
it literally
to.
says it builds their hopes that our answer will be a yes. It prevents them from making other plans, and it makes the eventual no much harder to receive.
Yeah.
So like it really makes things worse.
And it asked the question in my guidebook. It was like, if somebody was to say no to you, how would you rather them say no? Would you rather them just be like,
Just be
sorry, I
straight up.
can't? And then it was also, I think this is good for all the time, not just necessarily like Christian stuff, but especially with work. When you're talking to like, even like literally anybody, if you're giving some sort of news that you don't think somebody's gonna wanna do, we call this a praise Oreo at school with kids and with parents and with coworkers. You start with something they did really well, you give the bad news, or be like, so look at how awesome you used your periods. I see that we don't have capital though afterward, but let's move forward and these paragraphs are looking really good, keep going. Like basically it's like, yeah, give them a little bit of good. Thank you for asking me or considering me for this. I don't think I'm gonna have the time to give it to you right now, but I hope it goes well.
Build them up wow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be tearing them down. It can also be like preparing them or benefiting them for something better, or like somebody who would be better for the position, somebody who would be better for them in a relationship, something that will be, you know. My absolute favorite part of like pretty much these whole two things was the part where she was talking about if you don't say the small no, it could take you to a whole different place of where you thought you were jumping in. And she equated it again. She had another good, like, what do you call that? Analogy.
Yeah.
Where she was like, if you like jump into a river, that's great, but you also have to consider where the river's gonna take you. So like, you're not gonna get out of that river at the same place that you jumped in, because it's gonna take you, even if you don't stay in very long, you're still gonna be taken downstream a little bit. And it's not like you can't get out of the river again, like you have the opportunity to get out,
harder.
but it's harder once you're in the water, and you're gonna have different results because it's
And your
moving.
destination's gonna be backwards.
Right, you're gonna have to walk back to where you started. So it's like, consider what you want from it before you even dive
Chase
in.
down your decisions.
That's what it says.
That's what she called it at some point.
That's
Chapter 12? Yep. Last but not least.
the awkward disappointment of saying no.
I think we've all felt that awkwardness. Not so much anymore. I feel like as you get older, it gets easier to say no. Ooh, I love the part where she was talking about it doesn't take confidence to say no. It's a matter of being more certain of your convictions. So like, it doesn't matter how, like, because I feel like confidence is a huge thing for at least me, and I feel like most of us that we talk to, as like a goal and as something that helps you. But it's kind of like an idea shift when you don't think of it so much as like confidence and feeling good as it is certainty of your conviction. So like, no, this is what I know to be true. This is what I know is good for me, so I'm gonna work on that. Not just that I feel good, like I'm confident in myself and confident in what I can do, but that I'm confident in him and I'm certain of what I know to be true.
I liked when she said, are we going to be a yes girl or a best yes girl? It says, a yes girl lets the disappointments of others keep her from making the best yes decisions.
I like that.
Let's be best yes girls.
Like, you're just gonna say, yeah, you're just gonna say yes to everything because other people want you to, or you're just only gonna say yes to the things you know are right.
And it was talking in this chapter about how it's not just necessarily decisions, it's like thinking about what God's appointment for your life is. Like, and whenever you think about it that way, it gives a little bit more like purpose to your decisions. And she said, appointment and disappointment walk hand in hand, and to accept one invitation is to decline the other. So if you're gonna accept disappointment, then you're avoiding your appointment from God. But if you accept your appointment, then you're like on the path away from disappointment. And she said it's time to decide which invitation we're going to accept. So you're gonna accept appointment, disappointment. You're gonna be a best yes girl or just a yes girl.
Yep. That's all for now. That's all she wrote. I think
there's only 2 sessions left, so we'll only have one more video on this book. We'll finish it the next time.
Our 3rd video.
Because the back always has a ton, so it looks like there's like more in there, but we only have less than 100 pages left.
Yeah. So we do have a couple of Christmas videos coming up next. I know that for sure. And then in the new year, in January, our 3rd and final little talk about this book will come out. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed and got something out of today's video. I feel like we had a good conversation.
Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell.
We hope you have a great
Garrett week. We hope you have a great week, and we'll see you real soon.
Bye, guys.